This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. If you're watching the video today live on social media, you'll notice I am not there. My apologies. I am remote, but have a great show lined up for you nonetheless. Dan Sneath from Hunter Nation is going to be joining me on the show today. We have some great discussions regarding the successes of some legislation that recently passed within the Pennsylvania legislature, so I'm excited to discuss that. But before I do, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. Effectively August 1st, the MOA Early Bird Special. The Early Bird Special will be covering the 2026 membership. So if you're interested in joining the MOA, effectively August 1st, you can go to marianaoutdoors.com. You get the remainder of 2025 for free. I want to reiterate, you get the remainder of 2025 for free, and then you get all of next year. It's a very good deal. Again, marianaoutdoors.com. And if you ever have any questions or if you'd like a tour, give me a call personally at 724-579-0924. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you're looking to book an upland bird hunt this fall, trophy trout fishing trip, blast and cast combination, 10mileco.org. If you're looking to book a wedding, corporate event, party, we have that covered for you as well, lodging, so on and so forth, 10mileco.org. Give me a call, 724-579-0924. And last but not least, I want to give a special thanks to Washington County Chamber Tourism and Promotion Agency. Please visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. And I also want to just briefly go over some upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. I already stated that the Early Bird Special will go into effect August the 1st. So again, if you want to get a 2026 membership, it is the best deal that the MOA runs. It'll open up August the 1st. It'll go into effect. You'll get a September 1st to the end of the year, and then you get all of next year with that membership, but you get the remainder of 2025 for free. Information on this is at marianaoutdoors.com. Saturday, August 2nd, it's a flower and veggie picking day at Wild Acres Farm. Saturday, September 6th, there'll be a quail stalking number 1, and dove hunting opens up at Wild Acres. Saturday, September 6th, there's an open house and a tour. Saturday, September 20th, there's going to be an energy, security, and sportsmanship bash at 19 North Event Venue in Washington, Pennsylvania. Friday, October 3rd at 8 a.m., the MOA Members Tag Trout Contest begins. That is a monthly ongoing tournament contest. It runs from October until the end of April. So that's really exciting. We're really happy to have that. And then if you're interested in any of the trout stocking dates and times, those are also listed at the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association's Facebook page. We have stockings from October all the way into May of 2026. So a lot of stuff, a lot of information. But I'll end there with the events. I'm going to switch over to our guest. Dan Sneath from Hunter Nation is on the call. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm well, Jason. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Hey, Dan, I know you and I know each other very well, and I've been blessed to have met you and built not only, I would say, a working relationship, but a really good friendship. Tell the people out there who you are, what's Hunter Nation, and then we'll dive into some of the legislative things that we've been working on.
Well, thanks, buddy. My name is Dan Sneath, and as Jason said, I've gotten to know him through working with Hunter Nation during the coalition that we put together with the Farm Bureau, other hunting organizations, and Pennsylvania Game Commission to work on getting the Sunday hunting legislation and some other improvements in hunting and wildlife management through here in Pennsylvania. Hunter Nation's a national organization. that advocates for hunters around the country, and to make sure that hunters' needs are above other things that may be involved in conservation, make sure hunters have a voice. I'm the Pennsylvania legislative director, so I work in Harrisburg a good bit. I go into the Capitol and I talk to legislators and try to make sure that the voice of hunters is being heard, not just everybody else's voice, and hunters are being left behind.
How, Dan, if anybody's interested in getting more information about Hunter Nation or joining, how do they go about doing that?
If you go to our website, hunternation.org, you can go from there and go to the Join Hunter Nation link on there and join Hunter Nation. There's a variety of different packages. Most people start out just doing like the $25 package. They get involved. They start getting the emails. They start getting the updates, and they start seeing what Hunter Nation is doing. Again, we're a nationwide organization, so we do a lot of work. Our organization does in some of the Midwestern states and Western states. But here in Pennsylvania, we've become more active over the last couple years with the Sunday hunting and other proactive areas for the hunters of Pennsylvania. And we're one of the more out there groups right now as far as the Hunter Nation state groups go. So we're really pushing here in Pennsylvania. We're trying to keep moving forward. So that's a big thing. And we're here for hunters. That's what we're here for. We concentrate on the hunters and the needs of the hunters.
Well, fantastic. I think, I was blessed to be at a bill signing recently, and obviously, if anybody has seen on television or on the radio or on the internet, Sunday hunting has passed in Pennsylvania. And if you actually go and look up any pictures or I'm sure comments, you're actually going to see Dan he actually got to get up and speak because of Dan's, I would say, in a good way, extremely good involvement with helping positive things happen. So I want to discuss House Bill 1431, Dan, and I also want to discuss Senate Bill 518 because I would say the general population obviously knows the Sunday hunting piece, which is groundbreaking for Pennsylvania. But I also want to go over some of these other things that I don't think a lot of people actually are aware of that were in both of these bills. I want to start off by asking you, Dan. Last year, this stuff, all these different topics within these two bills were, I think, we thought we were at the finish line last year, and we just didn't get there. What do you see right now? I guess, where do you see all of us at collectively with how we got from last year to this year with this legislative session in Pennsylvania? And where do you see us, as we kind of progress forward? Like, what have we fixed? Where were there, I guess, landmines or bumps in the road? Kind of give your perspective of how we got here.
Well, last year when we got this moving forward and we finally started getting hunting organizations, the Farm Bureau, kind of all together working on the same page, rowing in the same direction as groups with the common interest, and we were moving forward, but we still hadn't perfected that yet, so to speak. And I don't want to say anyone got in anyone else's way or anyone stepped over anybody else, but I don't think that we were a unified voice at the time. I think everyone knew we were kind of together, but I don't think people realized that we were a unified voice. So as we moved into the fall last year, I think we were doing pretty well, but because of the, let's just say, lack of communication amongst the groups, one might have been doing something that somebody else had already done, and we were kind of working against each other at times, I believe. And with last year being an election year, I think that kind of worked against us a lot. Because of politics, and that's what politicians do. That's their job. They're politicking. So I think we kind of got ourselves into that a little bit because it got so late in the legislative session to get what at that time was Senate Bill 67 passed and was the vehicle moving forward. I think we lost steam right at the end, and we were literally just a vote away from the House and then kicking it back over to the Senate for a concurrence vote, which could have happened relatively quickly, but it just kind of ran out of steam. But with that said, it kind of got us looking back over that time frame, and we kind of debriefed each other. What did we do good? What did we do bad? So as we moved into, after the election, started moving into December, we started talking and deciding, hey, Farm Bureau, what do we need to do? Hey, hunting groups, what do we need to do? Game Commission, what do we need to do? And then we kind of pulled ourselves together, as you know, and we got together and we actually started sitting down having meetings together to make sure we were one cohesive voice. And sometimes we didn't agree on everything, but what we did was we found a way to compromise. As I said in my speech, we rolled up our sleeves and we got to work, and we found where that common ground lies and what we could do for each other to help. And that made it better, because now when we went into the legislature to speak to people, the Farm Bureau Legislative Affairs people were on board with the Hunter Legislative Affairs people, whether it was Hunter Nation or the other hunting groups that were involved. The Game Commission's legislative liaisons were working the same way we were. We all had the same mission, because we come up with a plan, we come up with what we wanted to see, and it made it easier now whenever we went in, because we all had the same message putting it forward. And that really helped us. And that's a big thing moving forward. And I believe in one of our meetings, the Farm Bureau head of your Wildlife Committee, Andy Bader, had said about being in Mississippi and talking to people from around the nation about how we were working together as agriculture and hunting groups. And they were like, that's unheard of. Everybody, that doesn't happen. So Pennsylvania, we actually are leading the way in that type of coalition together to solve the problems that agriculture has, and bringing in hunters who want to help. Again, are there going to be some speed bumps or some potholes in the road? I'm sure there are going to be. There's going to be times there are issues, but we all know each other now, and we all know what to expect from each other and how to work together. I think that's going to help us as we move forward to try and move the state forward in wildlife conservation.
Well, I can't stress enough. I've seen so many relationships in a good way built, not only between the groups, but even just to see different politicians across the entire state building, I would say, not only working relationships, but personal relationships where people know each other. And there's something to be said about relationships and relationship building, because there's a trust factor to all of this. And I really believe from last year to this year, we really bolstered all of that. To your point, we're all on the same page. And I also think, the way it was last year, a lot of this stuff was in one bill, right? A lot of these different ideas and thoughts. And what, I'm like a little bit on both sides of the conversation. I have a hunting and fishing preserve. I deal in that arena. I dabble in all of that. But I'm a humongous sportsman, and my businesses also rely on my involvement with agriculture and the outdoors and that symbiotic relationship. So I've been blessed, even from a business side of things, to have to look at both sides. And I think what's really unique is, I don't know how you see it, Dan, but in the past, I felt like a lot of people were talking and around the state, and not everybody was necessarily seeing or listening to everybody's, I would say, concerns, even in the agricultural community. When you look at this bill, we'll start with 1431. So it removes the prohibition on Sunday hunting. Now, that being said, just so everybody understands this, and Dan can reaffirm this, the Game Commission is responsible for setting bag limits and seasons. So they have to have two concurrent meetings where they vote and set those dates. Is there anything, Dan, you'd like to update anybody on that piece of the puzzle? Because I know that by the looks of it, the Sundays are going to get opened up this fall by what I've been reading.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct, Jason. The misconception that a lot of people are putting out there is that we're now legally allowed to hunt on Sundays with no constraints, which isn't true. As you pointed out, the Game Commission, what 1431 did, which is now Act 36 of 2025, what it did was it moved the Game Commission into a position where they could regulatorily use Sundays now. It doesn't open it up that you can hunt on Sundays without the Game Commission having them built into their seasons and bag limits. So there's kind of a misconception there for people that, it's a Sunday, I can hunt now. Again, it has to be through the seasons and bag limit of the Game Commission. So it shifted that authority to the Game Commission where they were now able to use Sundays, which before they weren't able to do. And as you said, what they've done is they've moved it. They have a meeting coming up on the Game Commission, that is, has their Board of Commissioners meeting come up on July 28th, and they have put out their agenda. And what they did was from September 14th through, I believe it's December 7th, every Sunday will be open for whatever season is in that week or that weekend. So if a season opens up, say, one Saturday, and it runs till the next Saturday, the Sunday will be open, but it cannot go beyond the Saturday where the season already goes out. So you'll see that specifically in our rifle season. We're going to open up on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. The Sunday after Thanksgiving was already part of the law, so we will be able to have that one. But then we're going to run through the first week of rifle season. We're going to have that Saturday. And then we're going to have the Sunday after that. But then the following week, it's going to still end on the Saturday that we traditionally ended on, because the Game Commission isn't able to add this year that second, what would be the third Sunday. So that's kind of going to be confusing for people, and they're going to have to watch that. If a season ends on a Saturday, the following Sunday does not get included. It has to be within what is already open, if that makes sense, if I explained that properly.
Yes, so basically, for anybody out there, the seasons that were already set, basically your start date and your end date, the Game Commission is going to be able to add dates in between the start point and end point. They're not going to be able effectively to extend seasons this year. Now, that's not to say that can't happen going into next year. The other thing, just so everybody knows and understands this, that can all be addressed. That's all basically administrative, and those are things that the Board of Commissioners can address appropriately. The big one that is very, very important that everybody understands of why this is important for the seasons and bag limits, we fall underneath of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and the federal government regulates waterfowl and migratory bird seasons. So there are federal statutes that we must follow for how many days we're actually allowed in Pennsylvania to hunt migratory birds. So that's something that's probably the most important. I know some people might not care about that, but just so everybody understands, there are federal guidelines of how many days you're allowed to hunt migratory birds. So the Game Commission will have to, make some adjustments and changes accordingly to follow those federal guidelines. So that's another thing I think is just really important. We just can't add unlimited dates for every species because we still have to follow federal guidelines. So
yeah, I think that's really important, Jason, too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I was just going to say, I think that's really important. People need to understand that for this year. I'm sorry. People need to understand that for this year. Going back to the federal government now and changing, I don't even know if they're able to do that. The feds may be like, hey, you got your season set, so they are what they are this year. Again, next year, I think we're going to see a lot of things change. Specifically, there are some issues with the people looking at the after Christmas seasons because of some changes that happen, which are going to be unknowns now prior to Sunday hunting passing. There's reasons why those seasons aren't open now, and that all has to do with scientific based wildlife management and following the North American model of wildlife management for the Game Commission.
Well, everybody needs to just kind of watch what the Game Commission puts out. There are I would say 99.9% chance you're going to see a lot of Sundays added this fall alone. And I would say next year you're probably going to see the same types of expansions, even within turkey season. I don't want to speak out of turn yet because obviously it hasn't been officially voted on yet. And then as Dan and I both said, going into next year, whenever the Game Commission in the spring votes for it'd be the 2026/2027 seasons, you're going to see big alterations and changes with having this prohibition lifted. 1431, Dan, another thing. It also recognizes that purple paint equals no trespassing. That's a huge deal. I know from experience, posted signs can at times be a freaking nightmare. Number one, a pain in the butt to put up, actually damage the trees. And another thing, they end up becoming litter because they rarely stay up more than 1 year. So on a personal note, I like the purple paint. I think it gives landowners a lot more ease. I actually think it's environmentally friendly too, considering I know how many staples and whatnot I've put into trees over the years, and also the amount of signs I've watched end up go blown away after some storms. I think that's very, very critical. Another piece of 1431, it strengthens trespass penalties. It's now a summary offense of the second degree with license revocation up to 1 year for trespassing while in the act of hunting or trapping. Repeat offenses within 7 years are misdemeanors with a 5-year hunting ban. Now, for me, Dan, I don't know how you feel about this, but I had a side conversation this morning with somebody else. I'm glad to see this be added. I know it's been a concern for a lot of people across the state. On a personal note, though, and from my experience, the bulk of people that I see committing trespass violations are not hunters and trappers. That's my opinion. I know that doesn't apply to everybody. But just looking ahead for the future, and I know you and I have talked about this, trespass reform as a whole needs to now be looked at because I think it would be a little bit, I hate to say it, discriminatory to pick on just hunters and trappers. And meanwhile, you have a lot of other people, whether that's UTV or ATV riders, people, just whatever, for whatever reason, somebody just wants to go on somebody's property and pick morels in their woods or pick acorns. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. But there's certainly a lot of other people that commit trespass on people's properties that, in my view, are not hunters. But just so everybody knows, that is not addressed in this legislation. That is something Dan and I will talk about in a few minutes, but some things to look at for the future. Let's see here. What else do we have, Dan? As far as 1431, those are, I would say, the big ones. I want to switch gears real quick, Dan. So like I was saying, the bills got split. So last year to this year, what they did, trespass and the Sundays went in House Bill 1431, and then there was also Senate Bill 518. Senate Bill 518 established an agricultural representative on the Pennsylvania Game Commission. It says the governor must now appoint at least one member to the Pennsylvania Game Commission who represents agricultural commodities tied to the normal farming operations. I just want to stress this to everybody. This is not Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. This is not any lobbying organization. This is to guarantee that somebody on the Board of Commissioners has some knowledge of agricultural practices, considering that the bulk of land that is hunted in Pennsylvania is actually private property and even agricultural land. So that's why it's so important just to have that knowledge base.
And Jason,
let's see.
even since the bills passed, I've been looking into more stuff about some other issues that I've been asked to look at, and I started looking at commissioners on different wildlife boards across the country, it's not uncommon to have that verbiage in other states, that there be people on the board who have who are agricultural interest. So it's not uncommon to have this. It's not like we just said, "Hey, farmers get to have a free seat here, and it's going to be the Farm Bureau." Like you said, that's not how it is. You know what I mean? So, but again, it's not an uncommon practice for boards of commissioners like we have, or whatever the different states list their people as, to have requirements that there be people on those boards who have knowledge of agriculture, because it's very important, you know.
Well, so I've interviewed for the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission to be a commissioner. This was a few years ago. And it's in my opinion, based upon that experience and going through that, it's certainly not about the most qualified person. It is astronomically and extremely, at this juncture, political. I mean, we could have a conversation for a long time about some improvements that could be made to that entire process. But one of the things that came out of it was, you know, acknowledging the fact that we need some better qualifications. You know, the political structure as a whole certainly needs to be, I would say, modified. I know that's been a topic of conversation even with the legislature about fixing how some of these commissioners are appointed. It's a topic for another day, but for today,
yeah,
you're guaranteed at least this one position that somebody's going to have some type of agricultural knowledge and understanding, which is critical because as we progress through this conversation, even in Senate Bill 518, the Game Commission is allowed to set regulations. So although it was not part of this legislation, it was originally meant to be, the Certified Hunter Program, which is a tool in the toolbox to connect hunters with farmland and to get extra deer tags for those pieces of property that obviously have damages. Part of this legislation, like I said, that was implemented by the Game Commission. It was originally meant to be part of the legislation, but the Game Commission, I would say, just put it in the old-fashioned elbow grease and did it ahead of time on their own. So it didn't need to be in the legislation, which is awesome. Some changes that were made in regards to crop damage. There's a simplified reporting system. Reports, you can report a kill within 24 hours as before, but now you can do it online via a toll-free number or via a public web portal. That includes the date, time, location, etc. And now, you and I talked before the show. We actually, as Farm Bureau, have a policy that we'd like to see voluntary reporting locations, whether that be a butcher shop, a licensed sales location, even QR codes on the licenses. I know the QR code thing is not officially, public information but I do know it's coming. I can't speak if it comes next year or the year after, but I do know the Game Commission is working on technology. But, something I want to see on a personal note, I'd love to see butcher shops. I'd love to see deer licensed selling locations be able to also voluntarily be additional points of contact for somebody to report. But this is a positive that it's getting better, I guess I'll say. It's not 100% fixed, but we're heading in the right direction. The other thing that was addressed in Senate Bill 518, easier carcass disposal. This was a big topic for farmers because if you shot a deer in the past, you had to quarter it out, and then you had to contact the game warden, and then you had to wait for the game warden to show up. Now you can shoot the deer, take it directly to a butcher shop, and drop it off. Hence why I'm saying if you're going to drop it off at the butcher shop, it'd be nice that that could just be your reporting mechanism. But basically, we've cut out some of the red tape, I guess we'll call it. Key takeaways from 518, Senate Bill 518 and House Bill 1431. Simplifies reporting processes for crop damage, streamlines carcass handling requirements, ensures the farmers have representatives on the Pennsylvania Game Commission, strengthens trespass laws, repeals the Sunday hunting prohibition. So a lot of positives. A lot of great takeaways for us moving forward. Dan, with all these positives, where do you see us moving? Like, what are some things in your opinion? What are some things you see as low-hanging fruit? And I just want to be clear, these are not things that anybody has right now as legislation. Dan and I work very well about having like goals and talking about things and, brainstorming. So just for the listeners out there, Dan, what do you think are some low-hanging fruit topics for us to discuss potentially for changes next year?
Well, as you kind of briefly touched on there a little bit ago, overall trespass reform. I think that's a huge issue we need to look at. I'm a property owner, and like you said, I don't just generally have a problem with hunters trespassing on my property. It's other people. Like they decide they're going to walk through and pick morels, which may not be a big deal to some people, but for me it's kind of good because I have some on my property my family likes them, so I like to pick them for myself and my family. Not a ton, but enough, That's an issue, is just overall trespass reform, whether it be people just walking through. I got trails through my property, and people, for whatever reason, decide they're allowed to just walk on my trails and be close to my house without me even knowing they're here. When there's game lands and other places they can go do that, whether state forests or state parks, they don't need to necessarily use my property for that. So it's not the hunters, and that's the bad thing, is because of the reforms that we made through the hunting stuff, legislation here, hunters seem to be the ones that are being picked on, but there's a whole lot of other reform we need to do in trespassing. Some of that could also be about fishing. You most likely have those type of issues on your properties with your fishing. I know friends of mine have that issue on their property also. So that's one of the bigger issues that we can look at is where do we go with overall trespass reform? How do we get people to stop riding ATVs through somebody's cornfield or through somebody's hayfield just because it's there and they know they can get away with it? How do we get beyond that? So that's one of the biggest low-hanging fruits I think we have out there that I think all the groups agree this is an important issue. We need to work together on this. One of the other things, and it's we have it out in the Southwest, and it's the pilot program out there with the certified hunter. I think that needs to expand across the rest of the state, or even if it's region by region, maybe we add another region or two to it over the next year and then another region, and we try and get that across the state to benefit the ag community with the use of hunters who are willing to hunt those properties. So those are probably the two biggest things that I think are easy enough for us to work on to get moving forward, and I'm hoping they are something we can do in the next year. The other thing, obviously, is let's get with the Game Commission and let's start talking about more Sunday opportunities. That was one of the biggest things that was explained during the speaking with legislators and other people, was giving people the opportunity. You can extend seasons 2-3 weeks if people aren't off work and not able to use them, because most people work Monday through Friday. A lot of Saturdays, giving that Sunday is more important to get somebody out than saying, oh, you have an extra week you can hunt, but it's during the week. So those are three of the areas I think that are very important that we work on over the next year.
I totally agree. I would also throw out there, we haven't talked a lot about this, but speaking of trespass, one of the big things I know farmers and private property owners get really upset with is littering. Littering in the capacity that it could be small items, littering in the capacity that it could be somebody dumping tires or TVs or other miscellaneous materials. So I think, when we talk about trespass, I also think when I think of littering laws and those types of things, those are worth a conversation. Certainly expansion, just so everybody knows, the Certified Hunter Program is something that doesn't even have to be fixed with law. When Dan talks about expansion, that's been something that the Game Commission's kind of just established as from regulation. Now another tool in the toolbox. Currently in Southeast PA, it's the only place in the state of Pennsylvania that you're allowed to use bait for red tag, your ag tag, crop damage properties. There's been a lot of farmers that have asked for the ability to utilize that tool in their arsenal. It's a lot easier to try to draw the deer in and to handle that, I would say, more effectively and efficiently to a location, to be very pinpoint with what they're trying to do. So I know from my perspective, I think that's a good thing. I know the conversations about semi-automatics. We allow semi-automatics for, waterfowl, even turkeys, with utilizing limited cartridges and even the tubes. I know that's been something that folks have in different organizations, even 2A organizations across the state, feel that it's high time that Pennsylvania allows semi-autos, clearly with magazine limitations and bullet limitations. I want to stress that. Like, nobody sitting here is going to talk about having like 50 rounds in a hunting rifle, but I see a lot of opportunities, Dan. A lot of good conversations for people to have. I also want to mention it's Farm Bureau policy, and it's something that I've personally kind of taken as one of my big things is permitting reform. And I think that we're making some headway with that one. I'm really looking forward to see what happens with that over the next 12 months, because that has huge implications for hunting, fishing properties, farms, private property owners, so on and so forth, just trying to access property, trying to culvert, you name it, culvert pipes, cattle crossings, fence posts. The list goes on and on to what that falls underneath of. As we kind of progress forward, I don't want to speak on your behalf, Dan, but Dan and I have talked about doing more panels. We've talked about doing more events across the entire state, and I'm really hopeful that we're able to make that happen, because I think it's really important to continue to build relationships with everybody, to have conversations, to listen to what people are going through. And I think, the more that we can all do that together, I only see, I only see good things on the horizon. Dan, once again, can you just tell listeners out there if they want any additional information about Hunter Nation, if they're interested, even to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, sure. Again, it's hunternation.org. That's the website, and it's easy enough to go in there, click through the links. You'll find all the different information about the organization on that site. If someone want to get a hold of me, my email address is dan.sneath, and that's SNEATH @hunternation.org. So, I'm more than willing to answer any questions about our organization or about what we do. But again, that's where we're at, and that's what we do. We're an advocacy group for hunters, and that's what we advocate for, is hunters.
And I also want to make a mention. There's other organizations that Dan and I have actively worked with, built relationships with. So, as anybody that meets us or talks to us, certainly I'm sure each and every one of you will get the opportunity to connect with other organizations, some local, some national. National organization we work with is Safari Club. I would feel hard-pressed to not mention them. They've done a lot. And I want to end on this note. We're doing a lot of work, even with the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, a lot of federal stuff that doesn't get a lot of conversation. I don't think not nearly enough in Pennsylvania. I know Hunter Nation has been very vocal about a lot of stuff nationally, as has Safari Club. And, we've, even with Farm Bureau, we're trying to do a lot with, the black vultures and a lot of the migratory stuff that's causing a lot of people hardships. So it's, I'm really, again, Dan, I'm really thankful for the friendships we've built, the working relationships. I'm a Hunter Nation member. By all means, if anybody wants any information, please check them out. We got a lot of great things coming up with Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. I just want to also acknowledge for the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, memberships are going to be opening up for the upcoming calendar year. So if you're not a Pennsylvania Farm Bureau member, please consider joining. Same thing goes for Hunter Nation. But as far as today, thank you, Dan. I'm Jason White. This is the Great Outdoors. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you soon. I'll be at the Fayette County Fair next week, stopping in with our Farm Bureau friends. But for now, have a blessed week. Enjoy the great outdoors, and I'll talk to everybody soon.